Today I want to talk about hitting the strings with your right hand, if you're a middle finger right hand player, rather than hitting it from a rigid claw position. Hopefully you can see that in the overhead camera. Rather than hitting it like that with your fingers kind of locked up all together, you can start to loosen that middle finger into kind of a flicking motion. I believe a lot of Clawhammer players will tell you to never do this. I just did it naturally when I started playing, and I didn't know until very recently that you're not supposed to do it. So what does that look like? So that's kind of an active middle finger. To contrast it to a static middle finger, I'll call it that, where you're kind of rigid and locked up. Almost a little hard for me to do that because I don't usually play that way, but you can loosen up your middle finger. And then the outer extreme of that technique of an active middle finger is to actually take your middle finger all the way back into the palm of your hand. I believe this is called the thenar eminence, thenar, I don't know how to pronounce it. This part of your thumb, kind of the meat of your thumb here, and then take your middle finger, kind of cock it in there and load it up, and then spring it outward. So that's the motion. The big reason to do that for me is that you just get this kind of extra pop. It's like an extra dynamic stop to pull out when you're doing certain notes. It really only calls to me when I'm playing and there's kind of a juicy note that's just alone, and you want to make a big deal out of it. It's kind of a technique I've never heard anyone talk about. I don't know if anyone does it. I'm sure someone does it because it's kind of a natural, physiological thing to do. But it does require, I believe it requires using your middle finger to strike rather than your index finger. That's a little tougher to get any kind of pop there. Now, why would you want to do this? The standard clawhammer motion can yield a pretty consistent tone, but I don't know what the point of a consistent tone is, really, because you want all kinds of different tones. To me, that's the point of playing an acoustic instrument, is getting a whole range of tones. Let's hear an example of this. So there it is right there, those final notes. I don't think that's a sound you can really get without this kind of power stroke technique. And it's a cool sound to me because you're inviting in a lot of different metallic harmonics. This really is a technique that shines mostly on steel string banjo. I think it can be done on nylon string, nylon gut string banjo, but I mostly think of it as a steel string technique. But hopefully you're able to hear what I'm doing there. You can move it around. I particularly like it when playing on the frets, because then you really do start to get some interesting harmonics, because you're actually kind of tapping momentarily onto the frets on the fretboard. So I'm in a strange case here where I have a half fretless or half fretted banjo. And to be honest, I almost never play up here outside of a few tunes, but it is cool as an added place to strike. I'd say mostly I'm doing it on lower strings. When I do the technique on a higher string, like in the B part of Soldier's Joy, it's a little modified because you really have a lot of runway when you're hitting the first string. You can knock. So rather than bring it all the way back in to my thumb for using on the first string, you can just kind of really lock it up and swing it out straight into the head of the banjo, which is to me a pretty cool sound to get that full percussive thing. So that way you're getting it both. So on the first string it's And now I'm going to do a power stroke from the meat of my thumb. I think that's a pretty clear illustration of what I'm talking about. Let's try that again because I kind of beefed it. Overall, what I'm talking about here is playing with big dynamics. Often, Clawhammer players tend to have, I think I heard Chris Cool call it an on and off approach to dynamics. You're either playing or you're not. Beyond that, there's not much drama in what you're playing. I'd like to think I play with a lot of dynamics. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's certainly something that I strive for when I'm playing, to be able to go from playing very quietly to very loudly. And really using all different parts of your hand. It's not about getting a consistent tone with one. I think you want to be able to do that because that's going to be 80% of what you're doing, 70%. But you also want to experiment with all kinds of different sounds. That is the point, to me, of an acoustic instrument. There's so much interesting stuff to do with it, particularly a string acoustic instrument. There's just, everywhere you hit it, you get a different sound. So why not experiment with all kinds of different sounds? So that's an example of really only doing this power stroke technique. I think what's important about getting it right, if this is something you're going to try to do, is that this really is a down into the strings kind of technique. You're not going across. You're popping directly into the banjo, not your standard bum-diddy stroke. It's not really a standard bum-diddy stroke at all. Where you're kind of gliding across the strings. You're going straight down into it. I don't know that there's many other ways to say this. I think this one's pretty straightforward as a clawhammer banjo thought technique. If you have seen someone do this, if it has a name, I'd love to know. Please leave it in the comments. Overall, I think of my style as kind of a two middle finger style, because I'm almost always fretting with my middle finger here in order to maximize sliding, and I'm almost always hitting with my middle finger in my right hand in order to get big dynamic sounds out of that striking finger. Yeah, I think that's about it. I can try to figure out another song to play. The one downside, of course, is it tends to throw your banjo out of tune.